Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, the Home Secretary has also rejected calls for an inquiry into alleged anti-Muslim behaviour by Conservative politicians. Earlier this week, the former party chair, Baroness Varsi, backed such calls, saying the party had to act on Islamophobia within its ranks. Her comments come as Tory councillor Stephen Ardley was suspended from the party after it was reported he had allegedly posted anti-Muslim comments about the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, on social media. The Conservative MP, Bob Blackman, has also been accused of sharing anti-Muslim comments, including fake news, leading to calls from the Muslim Council of Britain for an independent investigation into Islamophobia in the party. Well, this morning, Sajid Javid dismissed the need for an investigation.
But before I start, let's just look at who the Home Secretary is in this country. As you just described me, my name is Sajid Javid. I'm the Home Secretary in this country. Who said this? It's the Muslim Council of Britain. They've written recently to the chairman of the Conservative Party making these allegations. The Muslim Council of Britain does not represent Muslims in this country. You find me a group of Muslims that thinks that they're represented by the MCB. And secondly, I would be very suspicious of anything that they've got to say, not least because under the last Labour government and a policy continued by us, we don't deal with the MCB, and we don't deal with it because too many of their members have had favourable comments on extremists, and that's not acceptable.
Well, since then, it's emerged that more than 350 mosques and Muslim organisations have written to the Conservative Party backing calls for a formal inquiry. Baroness Varsi joins me now from Wakefield. Well, what did you make of the Home Secretary's dismissal of your call?
Well, look, as Sajid said about me, I can say about him, I have a lot of time for him, and I was bursting with pride when he was appointed as our Home Secretary. But unfortunately on this, Sajid is simply wrong. And that's not my opinion. That's the evidence that is now, much of it in the public domain, where candidates and councillors and members of the party and linked groups and members of Parliament have actually made comments, much of it in the public domain, which are clearly anti-Muslim and are bigoted. And what I've been asking for 2.5 years now, so this predates what the Muslim Council of Britain may have been saying, is that the party needs to get ahead of this issue and it needs to deal with this internally. Unfortunately, despite raising this matter with 3 successive chairmen and indeed writing to the Prime Minister last year about this issue, it is simply fallen on deaf ears. And what I'm saying is that the party now starts to come out of denial mode, get its head out of the sand and start to deal with this issue, which needs to be dealt with, both because it's morally right and because politically it's right for us to do so.
Obviously, those individuals aren't here to defend themselves, and I'm sure they would say that it's not bigoted, and in some cases it was mistaken. But, I mean, nonetheless, the point the Home Secretary was making was that, he's the Home Secretary. If you can have a Home Secretary from a Muslim background, what's the problem?
Look, I'm very proud of the fact that Sajid is our Home Secretary, but Krishnan, many of us will remember during the tragic murder of Stephen Lawrence, just because we had black police officers in the Met Police didn't mean that it wasn't right to be called institutionally racist. Just because we have had a CEO of the London Stock Exchange doesn't mean that we don't have a problem with women on FTSE boards or we don't have a gender pay gap. This argument is simply a straw man argument. I think what's really important is not to personalise this, but to go back to what the evidence says. And the evidence is overwhelming, case after case after case. It's evidence which I have been presenting to the party for many, many years. The party is aware of it. Indeed, Sajid and I had an informal conversation about this before he became Home Secretary. The party right at the top has been aware of this issue.
What did he think then?
It has failed to deal with it. I think he said we have to have a conversation about this. It was a broader conversation in relation to integration, and then I had a specific conversation with him about the issues within our party. But it's an issue that we now need to stop being in denial about. Look, we quite rightly raised the issue of bigotry in other political parties. We quite rightly condemned Jeremy Corbyn and others when they failed to deal with that bigotry within their own party. And what I find astounding is that those very MPs are now failing to deal with bigotry in their own backyard. start.
What about his attack on the Muslim Council of Britain? He says it doesn't represent Muslims. I mean, there's a lot of organisations today from individual cities around Britain writing in support of the MCB to the Conservative Party. Has he got that wrong too?
Look, there's a broader argument in relation to the MCB and the policy of disengagement that's been applied by successive governments in relation to them. It's something that I document in detail in my book. But again, I think that's not the argument that we need to be having today. Let's not spend our time shooting the messenger and discrediting the messenger. Let's actually focus on the message. Surely we should, as a party, be appalled that there are people amongst our ranks who have these bigoted views about Muslims in this country. Surely we should be concerned that we ran a campaign in 2016 during the mayoral election where we chose to focus on the future mayor's faith rather than on his policies. Surely as a party we should be saying that a modern Conservative Party will not tolerate bigotry in all its forms. And surely if we genuinely believe that there is no issue of Islamophobia or anti-Muslim bigotry within our party, we should be saying let's have an inquiry, because of course that inquiry will show very clearly that we don't have a problem. But if we feel that we don't have a problem, why are we fighting an inquiry? What have we got to hide? And what I would urge my party today is to say, stop being in denial, come out and deal with this issue, because it's an issue which unfortunately will ruin our reputation for years to come.
Baroness Farsi, thank you for joining us.